Hello guys and welcome to a brand new video. Today I'm here with Mushoku Tensei Season 2 episode number 17 reaction. So the previous episode we got like not we but Rudy, Sylvie, they met um Non and Aisha after a long time, and Rujit was also there. They had a little bit of conversation, and Rujit talked a little bit about Eris and told Rudy to like just when he meets her again in the future, just talk it out, stuff like that. And yeah, and that's what happened over there. Then we had the Aisha and Non, that whole thing. So basically Aisha doesn't want to go to study in the school. She wants to be like a maid or whatever, and wants to like help out Rudy and Sylvie in the house. And to prove her point, she was like, I can top my tests, and she did it. So Rudy was like, fine. However, Non was like, I don't want to live here, I want to live in the dorms. So she went to live in the dorms. She didn't have that much, like wasn't able to do academically that much good as as much as Aisha. She was kind of in the average. So all that aside, she goes to live in the dorm. Rudy gives her a lot of rules and regulations, like, oh, do this, do that, come visit us every 10 days and all that stuff. But by the end of it, Rudy realizes she's not able to make any friends. And obviously, I'm pretty sure Rudy thinks about his own life back in the real world. This is exactly what happened. For Rudy, it was even worse, but still, Aisha's Non is going through something somewhat similar. She's just being isolated, and like stuff like that. So let's see what happens, how Rudy tries to resolve this, and if Non is able to break out of this whole thing. So yeah, let us get started then. Episode 17. I'll be putting the subtitles and the timer here. Sync it to whichever is your preference, and let's begin. Okay, here's the countdown. 3, 2, 1, go. Oh no. Yeah, because it reminds him of himself. Hmm. Yeah. I doubt it's going to go this serious, but still, it's nothing. Yeah. It is still very. Damn. Okay, Rudy, calm down. Oh, he. I thought he went to go and talk to her, but she came directly to the class. Okay, that's interesting. I guess it makes sense because she like he has experienced what Non is going through now. So he knows that going and telling Non to come to school and try to make friends won't work, because she is shutting herself, because that is the problem. She cannot do that. It's not possible. So he decided to directly go to the class, which is okay, which is very interesting. Okay, let's see how he handles this. Because yeah, it's true. I thought he was going to go. He was on his way to go and meet Norn, but if you think about it, it won't work. First of all, Norn won't listen to him. Second, even if she listens to him, it won't help because she's not deliberately shutting herself. She's doing it because she cannot make friends and she doesn't have a good, like experience of school in itself. That's why. So it's not going to help if you go and talk to Non. We have to deal with the problem first. So okay. Hmm. Okay. I feel like he's probably going to ask like, what are you guys doing? Why is Non not? Okay. Hmm. I doubt it's bullying. It's probably really. I don't know. I'm not really. Okay, come on, Rudy. Re- Wait. So okay. Wait. So there really is. Okay. You know what? I'll talk about this later. Oh, that's what he's. I see. Yeah, Rudy, calm down. Okay. No, Rudy. Oh my God, he's. Oh. Well, yeah, that's a sensitive topic for her. Okay. Hmm. Um. Hello. Oh God. Oh, that is so everyone's. Oh my God, this is another problem in itself. Oh no, this. Okay. So he's realizing the problem is him or their relationship. That's the problem. Unless and until he resolves this with Norn, this is going to continue. He realized that it's not the class or the Yeah. Mm, yeah. Oh, still she's here. No, he needs to worry about it. Like, like not that, but the problem in itself. Mm. Mm. Yeah. Okay, that is crazy. Yeah, you need to go and talk it out. No, 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 it's not gonna work. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Mm. Yeah, go and talk to her. Mm. Oh boy. Mm. Oh no. Please don't. The, okay. Okay. I see. Okay, okay. I see. That makes sense. Yeah, because mm, but okay. Oh, he's hiding in there. Okay. Okay, here we go. Okay, let's see. Um, wait, what? Wrong room? Wait, what's happening? Oh my! Okay. I was baffled for a moment. I was like, what's happening? Yeah, he's seeing himself. Is this Ron's room? This is Ron's room, isn't it? Oh yeah, she's probably in there. Okay. Oh, there she is. Uh, hmm. Hmm. But the fact that he came and was trying to talk to you in itself is, something. Shows that he was concerned. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. True. And Non will turn exactly like how he was. Yeah. Oh, right. Hmm. Yeah, that's why she was like, I want to stay in the dorms because she felt isolated here as well. Oh boy. Immediately everyone was like, yeah. Mm. Uh, well, this is going to. Yep, this isolated her even more. Wow, they don't even remember her name. Yeah, I guess it's the first meeting, but still, you know. Oh god, yo, this is just. Oh god. Ah, come on, man. Like, this is just so. Like, obviously, nobody has any malice in their heart when they're saying this, but still, but who the. That's a very interesting character design. Yeah. Mm. And then this whole thing. Oh, come on. Like, just. Pursana and Linia, they just. Mm. Oh, there you go. That's the other girl. Oh. She not eaten or something? Oh my god. Mm. Now we are here. Yeah, it's true. Because yeah, he was all alone, you know. Or not all alone, but you know, Eris was there, but still. Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Oh. Mm. Okay, there you go. Yeah. Yeah, but it still, helped. Yeah. 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 Yeah, that'll be good. Okay, there you go. Wow, that was a really good episode. Whew. Okay, and that was today's episode. Wow, that was something. Oh boy. So, yeah, today's episode, Rudy was able to come to an understanding with Non. Obviously, as he says, like, he wasn't able to do anything, neither was, like, neither was he able to get to know Non's feelings, what she thought, and all that. But what mattered was the fact that both of them were able to come to an understanding. Even though they won't understand each other's feelings, it might not be completely possible to understand what each other thinks or to its entirety. Still, it is possible to kind of move forward and, yeah, just come to an understanding. So today's episode has a lot of things that is worthy of discussion. First of all, um like obviously the episode was like centered around Norn and what Norn went through after coming here. Now there's a few things we need to understand. First of all, number one, that Norn, after not even like okay, first of all, there's one part I remember where they kind of mentioned that she mentioned, or was it Rudy who mentioned it, that when he realized that it was actually because people compared him to her, that she started getting isolated and decided to just go into her shell. That's what he says, that up until now people were comparing her to Aisha. Now after she comes here, people are comparing her to me. Now this is one thing that I feel like we need to understand, that like, because it's just what can I say, it's crazy to think that, not crazy, but it's very like each of them, each Non and both Aisha, each has their own problem. If you remember the previous episode, there was a section where Aisha kind of mentioned that, oh, like, am I like, are you not listening to me because I'm the mistress's daughter? And she talks about how, her mother and Non's grandmother did that. So, that is something that Aisha had to deal with, where she has her own troubles, she has her own problems, and that is still, I feel like that problem is still within her, that whole thing, that comparison, when people compare them, her and Aisha in that way, that's something that is bothering Aisha. At the same time, it is kind of like, interesting that just like how Aisha is having her own trouble, and like she is like thinking that people are comparing her and Non because of their, the way, who their mother is, because who their mother is, like, like Zenith is Non's mother, while that lady, I always forget her name, she is um um Aisha's mother. That is the comparison that Aisha had to go through. Here Non, however, there's a lot of people who probably before this compared her to Aisha, because Aisha is capable. Aisha can do a lot of things. Aisha, as we saw, that she's very smart. She can do the academics and all that stuff. She like gets full marks in that. A lot of people probably compared her to Aisha before, up until now as well. So that is the comparison that she had to go through. So both the sisters had to go through some people like comparing each to the other, and each has their own problem. At least we were able to deal with Non's situation in today's episode, but I feel like Aisha's situation, I'm not really sure if it's going to get brought up in the future, and we need to have a conversation with Aisha like this as well, to make her understand that, yeah, like, like, don't worry about it, because she also has her own, like, like trouble that she's going through as well. We saw that in the previous episode. It wasn't really resolved, not like Rudy told her that, oh, don't worry about it, no, I don't come, like, who told you that, why are you comparing yourself like that, but I feel like that's still there, and I'm guessing it'll probably come into play in the future, and Rudy might have to have a talk with her as well about that whole situation. But in today's episode, we see how Non's situation, how Non was also compared up until now, and coming here, everyone's comparing her to Rudy. And what is even worse is that Rudy is someone who she knows almost nothing about, and she kind of hates. So just imagine comparing you to someone that you hate. Oh, that'll be like, that's quite a big, yeah, that is very bad. Like, so, and that is why we get to see in today's episode how Non had to go through all of that. And yeah, so each of the sisters has kind of like this, a very similar type of situation. each is thinking that each of them is not good enough, and kind of comparing themselves with the other sibling. And you know, that's basically what is happening. We kind of talked with Non today. I do wonder if we're going to talk about the whole thing with Aisha in the future episode as well. So this is the whole comparison thing that we saw in today's episode, and it's crazy to see. Like, I can understand kids comparing you to your brother or sister or whatever, because they're kids. They know none the wiser. They're not none the wiser. They're not. They don't have a proper understanding that, oh, if I do this, maybe the other person will be hurt, because they're kids. I was baffled seeing the teachers do the same as well. She's like, oh, I'm sure you, like, obviously she had, like I said, none of the people here in today's episode had any type of malice in their heart when they were comparing them. Just a statement. It was just a statement that, oh, your brother is here, that's great, like don't worry about it, like I'm sure you'll reach your brother's level in a few years. Something like that. It's a very normal statement. Obviously they weren't mocking her or anything like that, but still, it is a bit, like, weird to say something like that, especially as an adult, if you say that to a kid. But that's just, like, a lot of people do not have any understanding of this whole thing, this whole comparison thing. Even a lot of adults don't understand. Like, whenever there's a situation like this, if you compare someone else, especially if that person is your brother or sister, like, like I've seen a lot of, like, people, like an adults and teacher, compare like two people in one class and be like, oh, that guy, you see that guy, he's so good, try to be like him. I've seen a lot of, like, situations like that as well. Yeah, that's a bit, like, it is a bit frustrating in those type of situations as well. But the thing that saves that is the fact that the persons that they're comparing them with is a complete stranger, or it's not family. It gets even worse when you compare a family member to another family member, because if you just sit down and try to think about, like, just like how you're comparing them, just think about the fact that just like you, a lot of other people in the past might have also done the same to that person. And just try to think how that person might have felt up until now every single time when someone compares them to their superior brother or sister. So it will be very clear, and it will immediately understand that, oh, maybe I just shouldn't compare that, because that's what I'm saying. If it's family, it's even worse, because you must realize that this has happened before as well. A lot of people must have compared them as well, like this. And if the person you're comparing them with, or if the person that you're telling this to, if they are not comfortable with it, they'll even, like, go deeper into their shell. That's literally what happened here today. The situation got even worse here because Non doesn't like Rudy. It made the situation even worse. So basically, people are comparing her to her superior brother, who she knows nothing about and low-key hates. That was the situation. And also the fact that she thinks nobody here is her ally. The only person that she kind of, was comfortable with up until now was obviously Paul, and I'm sure Zenith as well, but Zenith is not here, she's missing now. And we saw a little bit of Ruijed, like she was a little bit comfortable with Ruijed as well. So these are the few people that she's a bit comfortable with and she might be able to think of as allies. But here, there's literally no one that she could think is an ally. So she's in a place where she thinks nobody is her ally. She thinks everybody hates her. She thinks that she must keep quiet, otherwise people will throw her out. She then goes to school and says that I want to live in the dorm, and Rudy was like, okay, which she also took in a negative way. She was like, oh, my brother doesn't, isn't concerned about me, And then she goes to school, and the first thing everyone does is like, oh my god, are you Rudy's great sister? That brother who she knows literally nothing about and she hates. And not only that, it continues. Every single person, when they talk to her, they're like, oh hey, you there. And she's like, oh, I'm non-gray rat. And they're like, yeah, yeah, like, your brother Rudy, immediately, just completely not, again, like I said, none of these was any type of, any form of bullying or any type of, like, the students were genuinely curious. They weren't really doing this with any type of bad intentions, but it still hurt her. People not really talking to her, but talking to her her brother because her brother is one of the best like students in this place. Not students, Rudy isn't really a student, but still. So, that whole scene where we saw every single person who's talking to her, they're like, oh, your brother is this, your brother is that, and then there's two other girls who are like, oh, your brother taught me this, like, can you say thank you to him, you know, and then like, and then final, the last straw was when the teacher was like, oh, like, you weren't able to do this, don't worry about it, your brother was able, something like that, she says. And oh, immediately she started shutting everything off. And at first you could see she was at least listening to them, but then as time went on, and as she's realized that every single person who talks to her literally is talking to her because of her brother, she, as soon as she hears the brother's name, she shuts everything out, as you saw here, like, after a few moments, there was a scene where we see where she hears her brother's name and she immediately shuts it off. She's like, oh, they're talking about my brother, I shouldn't listen to it. So that part where what's his name, Luke was like, oh, your brother was going to say something like, don't worry about it, your brother and Ariel's relationship isn't what you think it is, or something, because he has a very bad perception of his brother. So as soon as he says Rudy's name, she shuts him off completely, didn't even listen to him. That's why the later part of the conversation, when Luke probably said that, oh, your brother is good friends with Ariel Sama, something like that, it didn't even enter her ears. And then the whole thing with Linia and Pusana as well, like, all that, and she's just like, why is this happening? Why does everybody praise my brother so much when my brother is like this? And then also she remembered the parts where Paul and Bridget told her that, just don't worry about it. Your brother isn't what you think he is. He has his own troubles. He went through a lot as well. So it's like a conflicting emotion. She doesn't want to associate with her brother, but at the same time, she thinks that maybe there is another part to the story, which I'm not understanding. But to get to know that other part of the story, she doesn't have the courage to do that, or the energy to do that, because she's just so sick and tired of everything. So yeah, like, this whole thing just escalated day after day, and it just made her shut herself up in her room. And so this is um Norn's part of the story. Rudy's part of the story is, you see, where Rudy goes, the first thing he does is goes to the class. And I thought what Rudy was going to do is he would be like, oh, you know about this girl who isn't coming? Why aren't you guys doing anything about it? Can't you guys, like, talk to her and help her out? Like, why are you guys doing this class normally when there's a student literally just there in her dorms, not attending class? Why aren't you guys taking any steps for that? Like, talk to her, ask her what the problem is. I thought that was what Rudy was going to say. Now, I realized very soon that wasn't what Rudy was thinking. Rudy was thinking that she was getting bullied, which makes sense because that's what happened with Rudy. So he's immediately equating that with his own experience, and he's like, oh, maybe she's getting bullied. That's why the first thing he did here after coming and standing in front of the podium was like, who is the person who did this? And trying to judge whether someone is harassing her. Now obviously I realized that, like, for a moment even I was like, wait a minute, is she really getting bullied? Because I was confident that obviously this wasn't any type of bullying. She was just isolated. That's what it was. So even for a moment I was like, wait, is this really bullying? But then we realized, like, no, it wasn't really bullying. As we saw, Rudy was just so convinced that it was bullying because he was equating his experiences with her and kind of thinking that, oh, that same thing is happening. But like people shut themselves up because of various reasons. Obviously, Rudy did because Rudy was getting bullied. Non did because Non felt isolated. She thought everyone is our enemy here. That is why she did that. So, you know, but like Rudy was kind of going overboard a little bit. But like I said, like you cannot really blame him because he thought that someone was generally like harassing her. That's why he was so pissed and he was like jumping into conclusions. So, that whole thing. And then when he realized that when everyone is like, oh, like I talked to your sister and I mentioned you, and even the teacher was like, yeah, I even mentioned you and said that, oh, don't worry about the assignment, your brother can, like is so good, so I'm sure you'll do better as well as time goes. And he kind of put two and two together and he realized, oh, it's me, because I don't have any good relation with Norn, and she doesn't know me that much and she hates me. When people compares her to me, she feels even more isolated. And that's when it clicked in his head and he's like, I need to have a conversation with her, or at least come to an understanding. So that's how the whole thing started. And when Rudy realized that I need to do this, he gets Linya Pusena's help and and Ariel's help as well, goes, sneaks into the dorm and is sitting in front or standing in front of uh, Norn's bed. And that is where we get to see a little bit of his past. Now, this part is very interesting. We see how Rudy shut himself up, obviously because of the whole bullying and everything. And his brother came and tried to show him that, oh, you know what? This is just a, like a bad thing that is happening to you. Don't like destroy your life because of this. Like what you're doing, just shutting yourself up, is like literally destroying your life. Stuff like this. As Rudy says, that he tried to give me a lot of advices, said that this is just a temporary phase, it'll all go, be okay as time goes on, this and that, told me that this is not only life, there's a lot of other stuff to life as well. And Rudy says, I shut him off completely. I didn't even listen to him. He says that he did it for multiple days, weeks, I don't know how many days he did, but for weeks, his brother tried that. And then finally, when he realized that nothing is happening, he stopped talking to him. And that is how the whole thing ended in his real life. So that is what happened. So from this whole conversation, this whole thing, we get to know a few things. Number one, his brother was enough concerned about him that he came multiple days trying to convince him to get out of this whole situation, or at least attempt, and stuff like that. So he genuinely cared for him. Also, that Rudy never paid any heed to him because obviously Rudy was always thinking, what do you know about the pain that I'm going through? But this is the very interesting thing that we always forget to ask. That we always say like, oh, what do you know about my situation? But at that point, we need to stop and think that, yeah, that person definitely doesn't know anything about my situation, because the situation I'm going through it, he hasn't gone through it. So it's obvious that he knows nothing about it. But the fact that he has come and taken his time every single day to come and talk to me in itself is something that shows that, he's genuinely concerned about me and wants the best for me. Something like that. So, that kind of thing. So yeah, but Rudy, wasn't able to, as Rudy says in the end, after he was able to go through to Norn, he says that I wasn't able to be like Norn. I wasn't able to just take his help. He came offering help to me, just like I am in front of Norn trying to help her out as well. I can understand what my brother felt at that point of time. He didn't know what I was going through, but he was trying his best, just like I don't know what Norn is going, like I know what Norn is going through, but I haven't experienced it, at least now. And that is why I cannot help her in that sense. So all I can do now is just come and talk to her. So unless and until Norn puts her hand out, I cannot take that hand. My brother did the same. He offered me his hand. I never took it, unlike Norn, who was able to do it. And that is what he thinks, that, yeah, like Norn is a lot stronger than I was. I wasn't able to take that hand. but she was able to. And since she was able to do it, that is why the situation improved. That's why Rudy was able to go through to it. So he's thinking like, if I had taken my hand, like, like taken the hand that was offered to me by my brother, would my life have changed as well? Just like how Non did it now, and something like that he was thinking. And yeah, it's so true, because in these type of situations, you cannot really help the other person, because the situation that they're going through, they have to deal with it. But you can just be and there with them. That one word that Rudy says, that I'm here for you, that thing, that's all you can do in situations like this, because they cannot come into your life and make the problem go away. It's a problem that you're going through. This is not any kind of thing that can be cured by some external thing, like some kind of a, I don't know, like a sickness or something, right? Oh, you're sick, here, take a pill, a medicine, everything is okay. It's not like that. It doesn't, it is not something like that. This is something that Rudy went through and Non was going through as well. So you cannot, in the truest sense, help them out or solve the problem for them. But one thing you can do is just, as Rudy says, I'm here, I won't go away, so don't worry about it. That thing. And that's something that his brother tried as well, but Rudy wasn't able to take that. Non was able to move forward, and he was able to take that hand. And you can see here, that was what Rudy was thinking. And that is what, in the end, that is why Rudy says that in the truest sense, I wasn't able to do anything, but since Non was able to put her hands out, I was able to grab it, unlike the past me, who weren't able to grab my brother's hand, even though he offered it to me. So something like that. So yeah, in the truest sense, you cannot really help someone in this type of situation, but you can just be there for them. Something like that, I guess. This is a very interesting quote that comes to my mind in this type of a situation. It's a very famous quote from the Monogatari series. It's something like, it goes like, one cannot help the other person. What? No. Oh my god, what's that word? That Oshinomeme is infamous. You cannot save another, one can only save themselves. Something like that. And I've forgotten the exact wording, but it's something like that. You cannot save others. The only person that can save themselves is themselves. Something like that. So yeah, but even though you cannot help others in this type of situations, you can at least be with them, and kind of, just help them out, and I don't know, be just there with them and provide them mental assurance. So yeah, so there you go. The problem, obviously, people will still compare her to Rudy, this and that always will happen, but in the end, Non realized and has decided that, yeah, I will try my best to understand my brother, because my brother has his own trouble as well. He has gone through, just like me, and he's trying to understand me, so I need to try to understand him as well. That was such a good episode, that was really good. And yeah, and as Rudy says, in the end, it feels like a lump in my throat, it got dislodged, because this is one thing that always was there, just haunting him up until now, so something like that. He feels a little better, at least, not only because Non is going to have a better, will be better from here onwards, but also the fact that he was able to clear his own feelings about his past life as well. He has come to an understanding with himself as well. So it was not only helpful for Non, but Rudy as well, because now he is, he has come to an understanding with himself as well. So yeah, so there you go. That was a very good episode. Like I said, this is why I love this show. It's just, obviously it has this typical fighting fighting strong enemies and stuff, and all these things as well. But stuff like this is which makes me appreciate this show more. It's just that it is such a like common thing. This whole episode, the stuffs that were covered here, it is such a common thing that we see in a lot of other shows, animes, in reality as well, obviously, but I'm talking about other animes. This whole thing about topic about self-isolation and like shutting yourself up, we see this in so many other shows, but most of the shows either kind of treat it like a comedic thing, like, oh, he's a shut-in neat, like loser, and he went to the isekai world and he got his cheat power. They either make it like a whole like a feature, like, oh, he's a shut-in protagonist, that's the whole feature, and a new feature in isekai protagonists. What's the feature? Oh, they're shut-ins. That whole thing, either they make it like a whole feature kind of thing, like, oh, that, or they are not able to like go and deal with this particular topic in an effective way. They just brush over it and be like, oh, I was a shut-in back in my real world, but now I have understood how important it is to have friends. Yes, I'm a changed man. I've seen a lot of shows like that as well. Like, a shut-in person in the real world gets isekai'd, and suddenly after coming to an isekai, he gets like a cheat power, and then he makes a lot of friends, and then in the end he realizes that, yeah, this is the life. Like, back then I didn't try hard enough. This is what, all that stuff. Like, it's a very shallow way of overcoming this whole thing. But this is how you do it. These type of situations, this is how you do it, and this is how you properly do it. Like, this was a complete experience as to what you go through and how you deal with it. Obviously the problem is still going to persist in the future as well, but at least Rudy has come to an understanding with himself and with Non as well. The thing to understand from this episode is that, like I said, this is not, there is no clear-cut solution to this thing, to this whole self-isolation and shutting yourself in. You yourself can help yourself in particular in situations like this, especially. And if there's someone with you, that's going to help out. So this is a gradual process. You'll be able to heal gradually from this type of thing. So that is what we need to understand. It's not as simple as we see in some other isekai anime shows, or something like that. It's not like that. So that is why I appreciate this show, and my appreciation for this show goes so much higher, because there's stuff like this. There's another show I remember which dealt with something similar to this in such a great way, and that is also one of my most favorite shows. I think I put it in my top 5 animes. It's called March Comes in Like a Lion, or Sangatsu no Lion, and it has a similar arc like this, which is a lot more brutal. It's about bullying, and I absolutely loved how they went with it, and how they were able to go through that, how they were able to deal with that, or how they showed the characters dealing with it. So yeah, it's very rare animes do stuff like this, but it's so much better when you see shows like this which are able to deal with stuff like this in such a in such a good way, and not like some other random isekai shows which just makes a full mockery out of it. So yeah, that is absolutely great. I just sometimes think about like Mushoku Tensei, and I just kind of listen about a lot of people. Obviously there's a particular group of people who just looks at this show in a very shallow way, just highlighting the weird stuff about this show, but I just think about that, and I just think that, my god, just because of that, they're missing this gem of a show. Because yeah, Mushoku Tensei had its weird parts in the very beginning, and it still has its occasional weirdness, but then at the bottom of it, there's such a like a gold mine of stuff like this, which is just so amazing, and yeah, it's just absolutely great. This episode was amazing. Okay, there you go. That was my overall impression about this episode. Okay, I'm just going to go through this episode scene by scene. I've already talked a lot about this. I'll try to, like quickly, like conclude this. But yeah. Okay, so today's episode, let me just go through the scenes and see if I've missed something that I wanted to discuss about. Okay, so the very first scene, we get to see Rudy is going towards to take care of the whole situation. Pursen and Lineas are there, and I thought for a moment he's going to go and talk to Norn. But we get to see that he wasn't really going to do that, because obviously he himself doesn't know how to, deal with this situation by talking to Norn, because he knows that he was that person and nothing worked on him. So he realized that it won't work on Norn as well. So let me just go to the scene and see what's happening. He thought it was bullying. It makes sense. Like I said, he thought he kind of related his experiences with Norn and just assumed that it was bullying. So that's why he was so pissed off, and he goes and he's like, looks at everyone and he's like, who's the one who did it? And everyone's confused, and it's like, what's happening? What's going on? What are you talking about? And Rudy's like, Norn Grey Rat, she's my sister. Is there anyone who knows anything about what's going on? So he like looks at everyone, and one of the girls tried to talk, and he kind of looks at her in a very ferocious way. She gets scared, and Rudy realized immediately that, I shouldn't do that. And she listens to her, and she's like, I realized that, she's your sister. So I asked her, like, are you Rudy's sister? And, that. And then the teacher was like, I also, like, talked to him about her assignments. She wasn't able to properly do it. But I was like, your brother is so intelligent. I'm sure you'll be able to do it. Rudy realized immediately, after hearing multiple people talking, like after realizing how multiple people conversed with her and said literally the same thing, comparing her to Rudy, he realized that the problem is him. And when he realizes, he goes back, because he now knows that he has to, like, it's not a situation that he could deal with like this. It's a more deeper problem, and the problem lies with him and Norn's relationship. He needs to fix that first, and obviously Lina and Pursina are like, don't worry about it. Sylphie comes in, she also reassures him, something like that. And this is the thing, in situations like this, when someone becomes like very vulnerable and starts blaming themselves, for example Rudy here, having people who care about you and who are there for you helps so much, because you could see immediately in this scene when Rudy was blaming him. First of all, Pursen and Lina was like, no, don't worry about it. Sylphie comes in as well, and she also says the same thing. So Rudy was able to share the burden with them. And it helps, like, even though the problem wasn't resolved, it helps if you're able to share the burden with others. However, Norn, nobody is there for her. Her problem that she was dealing with, obviously it cannot be dealt with in an effective way just like that. But if there's someone with her who she could share that burden with, it would help. So the problem here obviously lied with her being in a place where she thought that there's no allies with her. She wasn't able to share her burdens, which made it even more burdensome for her and just suffocated her, that kind of thing. So sometimes when you think that, I wasn't able to help that person out, just by going and there and listening to that person helps. It reduces the burden. Like, the whole burden that one person is carrying, if they share it with someone, it halves. Like, not in that way, but still it reduces. It reduces because you've shared it with someone. And if there's multiple people helping you out, it proportionately it becomes lesser and lesser, something like that. And sometimes like, when more people like encourages you, it can become a source of strength as well. You're like, yeah, I can do it. When so many people believe in me, I can do it. So it helps having people with you, in situations like this. Even though those people won't be able to directly help you out, it just helps by just being there at that point of time. So yeah, this was a very clear indication. As we saw, Rudy was kind of getting overwhelmed, but then Pusina, Linia, and Sylphie comes in, and they're like, everything is okay. And he was like, yeah, he calms down. So then he's like, I need to do something about it. So, and he's like, one thing he thinks is like, what can I do in this situation? I myself was a victim like this back in my world. Will I be able to do anything in this type of situation? And that is, like I said, that is the main thing. Rudy was thinking, I cannot do anything, but just going there and being with her is helps out, which he realized in the end. And he realized that's exactly what his brother was trying to do, but he wasn't able to take his hand. And that is also very important, when you're trying to help someone. If they shuts you off completely, then it's over. You won't be able to help them out. But if they're able to take your hand, then that helps. So the other person also needs to allow themselves, allowing you to go in and take that burden. If the other person keeps the burden to themselves, it won't really help. It might even worsen the situation. So the fact that Non was able to do that, that is why Rudy says that she's so much more stronger and braver than me. Anyways, after that, like Lina and Kusina comes up with a plan. They're like, okay, let us do something. And I immediately was like, please don't, because we saw what these two always are up to. But today in this episode, they were able to do something good, which is nice. They didn't mess up in any type of way. So the plan was to make Ariel give a speech, so all the students go there and they can sneak into her room, and Rudy can talk to her. And that's exactly what they did. And Rudy comes and knocks on her door. And this part really freaked me out for a moment, when some random ass dude's voice came booming out of from inside the room. I was like, what the hell? What is this? Wrong room or something? What's happening? And then I realized this is a girl's dorm. How can there be a man in here? I was so confused here. But then I realized he was literally seeing himself in there, just like his past. And he goes and stands in front of Norn's bed, and he remembers his past, about his brother coming and talking to him, trying to help him out, but he never took that hand, and his brother stopped talking to him. So now he's like, I can understand my brother's feeling. So he comes, tries to talk to Norn. It's not coming out. She is not able to speak properly and say, anything. While all of this is happening, we get to see the whole scene from Norn's perspective, and Norn is thinking like, oh, like it was it when I started feeling afraid of him? Was it the time when I saw him beating up my dad who was the one who always protected me? And then there was also that scene where she saw Sylphie and Rudy drunk, and she was thinking like, my brother is doing this while my dad is trying to search for mom. And this is a similar thought that Paul had as well back then, when Rudy came and Rudy was like, when Paul tried to like talk like that with Rudy, and Rudy started beating him up, that whole thing. That was the same thing that Paul felt, if you remember, when Rudy came and Rudy was like so smiley and happy, and he was like, oh, that this happened, that happened, and Paul just hit him. That the same feeling that Paul was feeling. Paul was thinking like, oh, I'm searching for Zenith like this, and you were just being this insensitive, something like that. But like we know back then, like Rudy had his own troubles. We know that he always tries to like mask stuff or cover up stuff with a smile, because that's literally what he did. That was his escape mechanism when back in his school, when he was bullied. So situations like this, he tries to kind of act extra happy just to cover it up. So, we know all of that, but Paul didn't know any of that, and stuff. That's why that happened, and that's why. And the similar thing here, she also feels. She sees Rudy and Sylphie like that, and she's like, "Oh, my dad is trying to find mom, and he's just fooling around like this." And then when she talks to Rudy about the whole dorm thing, she thinks that Rudy's going to get mad, but Rudy was like, oh, it's fine, go ahead. At which, like, it's kind of like difficult, because if Rudy said like, oh no, stay here or something like that, she probably would have felt like, oh, my brother is trying to control me or something like that, But Rudy said like, oh no, go ahead. She started thinking, oh, my brother doesn't even care about me. So if you do it, it's trouble. If you don't do it, it's also trouble. But that was how she was just closing herself up, wasn't letting anyone especially his brother, help her out. And that's why it was basically that. So she was like, oh, my brother doesn't like care about me. And so after that, then she goes to school and everyone starts asking about Rudy. They're like, oh, you're Rudy's sister. Wow. And she's like, yes, I'm non-gray. And everyone's like, oh no, your brother is amazing. Completely cuts her off. So she realizes that, oh, like, people are not really looking at me, they're looking at my brother. And first it was the students, then it was the teacher who was like, oh, like, like, I'm sure you'll be able to do it. Your brother is a genius, so I'm sure you'll be able to do it. So yeah, like, nobody was at fault here. Obviously everyone wasn't really trying to corner her or bully her or make her feel bad. They were just genuinely stating that, oh wow, your brother is that Rudy is great at. It's a genuine admiration for him, which obviously he took in a wrong way because he doesn't like Rudy and he hates him and he thinks there's no allies over here. That's why she took it in a wrong way. So after that, she gets completely isolated. Even her roommate was like, oh, your brother, this and that. So, from that point onwards, she started shutting it off completely. As soon as she heard her brother's name, shut it off. Nothing else comes into her ears. Then that scene happened with Luke, and she shut it off immediately when Luke mentioned his brother. Shut it off. Then Linia and Pursena, that whole scene made it even worse. And then we see, fast forward to this scene where she's just shut herself up. And up until now, we see all the negative things that he thought about Rudy, but then he started thinking about the positives, which was basically Paul telling her that your brother also has his own trouble, so don't hold it in for him. He's suffering as well, so just forgive him. And another positive thing was when Rujet told her that, oh, your brother, do you dislike Rudy that much? And he's like, don't worry about it, your brother, you'll be able to understand one day what he's going through. And yeah, just try to face him without running away. So his dad also said the same thing. Her dad also said the same thing. Paul also said the same thing. Regis also said the same thing, that don't run away, just face him. And yeah, and she's like, you know what? Let me try that. Or she was kind of thinking whether what to do. But here, when Rudy says, especially Rudy's like, Norn, I'm sorry, like I'm just messing everything up. Am I not? And he's like, I cannot do anything for you. I don't know what I can do for you. Even if this is all I can do, I can just be here. And then when Norn opens the curtains, he sees Rudy standing. For a moment, he sees Paul standing there, because he realized just overlapped the whole scene. And then Rudy says that, like, I'm here, just don't like, if you think that there's nobody here, like, don't worry, I'm here. I'm not going to go away. And yeah, and this is where both of them reached for each other and were able to grab onto each other, and that's why it worked. And there you go. Then Non starts crying. There you go. The whole situation was at least somewhat resolved, because like I said, it won't go away that quickly. This whole thing, it'll take time, gradually. Just like how Rudy is gradually healing from this whole his own trauma from his past. This is also going to take time. Gradually, little by little, it's going to go away. And yeah, and then next day we can see Norn is just there, and Norn is making an active attempt to get along with Rudy. She's like saying good morning to him, even Sylphie as well, and then talking with friends. And Rudy thinks that Rudy's like, yeah, I wasn't really able to do anything, but Norn was able to take my hand. And maybe if I was as strong as Norn back in my real life, maybe I would have taken my brother's hand as well. Maybe my life would have been different then. So something like that, he thinks. And yeah, there you go. That is where it ended. Really great episode, like I said. Yeah, that was amazing. And it's good to see that, like Non and Rudy are at least now talking to each other and, you know, making an active attempt to understand each other, because they literally know nothing about each other. And Rudy barely even knows her. She like, she doesn't even know Rudy, even the little amount of Rudy knows about her, because she was a little kid when Rudy was there. And then Rudy went to Eris's place, and then the whole mana disaster happened and all that. She literally knows nothing about Rudy. That one thing that she remembers, her whole introduction to Rudy, was Rudy beating up her dad. So that was the whole thing. So just like how Rudy doesn't know, she even knows lesser than Rudy knows her. So yeah, they're trying to understand and, get to know each other better. And yeah, and there you go. That is it. That was my reaction to today's episode number 17 of Mushoku Tensei season 2. Great episode. That was absolutely amazing. So thank you for watching. If you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to press the like button, subscribe if you're new to the channel, or you haven't subscribed. Comment down below anything you want to say, anything you want to let me know. I'll check them out. That is it. Thank you for watching. I will see you guys next week with another episode of Mushoku Tensei. Until then, goodbye and have a nice day.